Welcome everybody to Business Monday. We're here at GoLocal Live in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Josh Fenton. This is Sue AnderBois. She is the food czar for the state of Rhode Island. I believe it's the highest ranking. I believe the governor answers to you. Czars are higher than governors. The coolest name for arguably the coolest job. You just sit around and eat pretty much all day, correct?
I would be doing that either way. But yeah, it's definitely the best job in state government, probably the best job in Rhode Island.
Excellent. Talk about, this is a new position that started maybe
about 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it really is to put some supercharge into the emerging food industry here in Rhode Island, not just restaurants, but all sorts of complexities within the food industry. Talk a little bit about the scope of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so the scope of what we're trying to do, it's a little bit twofold. So one was having somebody who's on point who could kind of look across the different agencies of state government and say, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to, everybody has their different notes they sing. We're all going to sing off the same sheet of paper.
So you mean everybody from agriculture,
to
DEM, to health, to DBR.
Commerce, DBR,
right.
Getting us all on the same page. And part of it then was creating, okay, what is that piece of paper we're singing off of? So we developed the state's first ever food strategy, Relish Rhode. You can find it on relishrhode.com. And it's everything from agriculture and fisheries and how we help grow and support those industries, how we connect them to new markets. We also look at food waste. We look at the climate for food business here in the state, as well as food insecurity issues. So really trying to look at the food system as a whole.
And what have you seen? You came out with a report maybe a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how has the report been working and being implemented? And what are you starting to see some benchmarking and some outcomes?
Yeah, so the report came out, Relish Rhode, just about a little more than a year ago. And we have 5 major areas that we look at. And so since then, we've been running on all cylinders, but there are a few projects especially we've been running on from the state side. So one is we've been partnering a lot with Commerce's program, Supply Rhode Island, or Supply RI, where we're working with large anchor institutions like Brown and RISD and Blue Cross Blue Shield and folks like that who want to turn some of their purchasing local. And so we're working to connect them with farmers and fishermen and all the great makers of the state so that they can start procuring some of their food products locally. And that's been going real well. We've had a few events, some Meet Your Maker or Matchmaker events, partnered with Hope in Maine. We're going to do another one based on fisheries later in the spring when it's a little more pleasant to head down to the port. But yeah,
the hearty food people,
yeah.
I'm surprised.
Put on your galoshes.
Yeah, that's right. What's been some of the frustrations? These things don't always go smoothly. I used to live in the world of state government, and it's not always, everybody doesn't always quite row as quickly as you'd like in the same directions. What's been some of the frustrations?
I'd say some of the frustrations, there's just so much to do, and I'm someone who, when I know what I need to do, I want to do it fast, and so even just, not being able to, I'm running it all steam, but there's so much to do. So frustration is trying to get it all done and serve the folks of Rhode Island as best we can. But I've been super impressed by the teams that I get to work with across state governments. My team over at Commerce, the teams at Health and DEM, just how much they've we did a lot to make sure that everybody was bought into the plan, bought into the strategy, reflected the stuff they were doing. So I've just been so blown away by how much everyone's just whoop, yep, now we got our plan and we are running. So that's
right.
been nice.
And at DEM, you deal with Ken Ayers over
Ken Ayers,
who might be the nicest human being.
Ken Ayers, yeah.
Yeah, just
Whenever
the best.
I'm having a hard day, I'm like, what would Ken do?
Yeah, that's right.
Literally, I do that.
I always think of Ken as if you're going to design the perfect state employee, right? It's Ken Ayers.
Yeah, I've been in meetings where farmers have literally requested that we build a statue in Ken's honor. We had his 30th anniversary last year.
Was it really
Yeah.
his 30th anniversary? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then where are we seeing the growth? Obviously, everything doesn't emerge the same way. Where are we seeing the greatest success? And where are we seeing the areas that need more focus, more resources, more energy?
Yeah. So we're seeing some really great successes with the growth of a lot of our small and mid-sized makers.
Yeah.
So our friends over at Hope in Maine, for example, they just graduated 40 businesses out of their incubator who now are either going into space by themselves, they're building out their own space, or they're co-locating with others. So just seeing this explosion of small to medium scale, well-designed, delicious food products and connecting them to kind of like markets all over the state and the region.
Yeah.
So that's been a really great area of growth. An area that we're really looking to expand more on. Thinking of the food strategy piece, we're putting a lot of emphasis now on our food insecurity work. And so food insecurity, another word for hunger. More than 12% of Rhode Islanders experience food insecurity over the course of a year. We just released from the statewide Hunger Elimination Task Force a big report, which you can also find on relishroady.com with a series of recommendations for how we're going to get there. But that's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's going to take some really concentrated work.
In the more mature restaurant industry, we're seeing a lot of closures. We report on it. Seems like I don't want to say every day, but kind of a well-known restaurant closes once a week, certainly. In a pretty good economy, we may be heading into a less good economy. Are we thinking about how to help existing, maybe older model entities in the food industry make the transition to be able to diversify their revenue and modernize? It's easy to be the startup, but it's more difficult to take an existing culture and structure and revitalize it for a different economy and maybe different choices.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And so we are seeing some restaurant closures. I will also say restaurant closures, they just happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of turnover in the restaurant industry every year, and that's just kind of the normal course of business. New ones open, old ones close, and it just kind of, people retire, and that's what happins. And so it's so sad when you see one of your favorite restaurants go,
Right.
but then you have a new favorite who opens up, so it's like a balance. But
I'm still upset about Eddie's and Son closing on Dorrance.
I'm really sad about Local 121 still, but I won't get over that anytime soon. But new things open, I get really excited about them. But I think a really great example of this and connecting folks to new programs like at Social Enterprise Greenhouse or the small business development stuff that's happening over at Commerce. I think a great example of this is actually Wright's Dairy Farm up in the northern part of the state. So they've been a dairy farm for a long time.
A gazillion years.
Yeah, a gazillion years. They've been here
predate
forever.
Ken Air.
Yeah, they were here before
been.
Ken.
Yeah.
But then, a few years ago many years ago they made a pivot to do more baked good and have a bakery. So it's not just a dairy. They use all of the milk they use a lot of the milk that they have from their cows, turn into baked goods, and now they're
maybe
trying
the best
to
frosting in the world.
Yeah, and it doesn't get more local than that. Their cows are literally 10 feet away, and they're taking that milk, turning it into your frosting, and now they're doing other stuff making ice cream and doing stuff like that, seeing okay, maybe just having doing fluid milk for dairies is a tough business. Let's see how we can innovate and continue on. And I think they're one of the, and it's, as the younger generations come in, they're coming up with new ideas and kind of cycling through. I think one of the younger generations going through the Social Enterprise Greenhouse Food Accelerator programs. It's, making sure folks see, okay, there's, we can evolve and we can keep going.
How important to everything you're doing is Hope in Maine? We've had so many graduates of Hope in Maine come in here and talk about their new small business and them fighting to get some distribution and things like that. It seems like they're pretty buttoned up on their product and maybe even their branding. They're getting better at the business side of it, and they're all fighting for distribution.
Yeah. So Hope in Maine is a key partner just constantly. We were celebrating for them a few weeks ago. They got a USDA grant, almost $200,000 to expand some of the co-packing work they're doing, which is really exciting. And something I said to them then is, you guys are just this giant piece of the backbone of the food industry here. So they're so important. And they're both creating, helping to grow these new entrepreneurs, helping them with the wraparound services, but they're also just such a vital part of the community. When we did a Supplier Eye event for makers and connecting them to new distributors, we did it at Hope in Maine, they just welcome you into the space like that. So it's both a place that's, really helping food businesses grow and develop and fly on their own, but also a really great partner on all sorts of other all sorts of other means. If we have something we want to share with food businesses, they're connecting it to their whole network. If we need to do an event, they're happy to have it in their space. It's just this wonderful resource.
That federal grant, I think Jack Reed was involved with it. It was about $200,000. Was there any thought of taking it up to Twin River and seeing if you could turn it into some real money, 17 black on roulette, and see if you could make it $4 or $5 million?
I know, it would be great if we could get some money like that flowing.
I guess the Fed's kind of shy on that.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't like it if we did that. That's a great idea, though.
We'll skip that one. That's for next year.
Put a pin in that.
That's right. What's the biggest frustration? Where's the? I know dealing with the bureaucracy of state government, and I used to work in state government, and you're just hitting the revving point at 4 o'clock, and wait, where's everybody going? Wait. People are leaving at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then you're dealing with entrepreneurs who are at Hope and Main till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out the right recipe. How do you mix those two things together to accelerate the speed? And do you feel some extra pressure because we're coming maybe out of a fast-growing economy into a slower growth or retracting economy that like, oh, let's go, guys?
Yeah. I'd say something that is still very heartening, even if we are going into a slower economy, is in our last recession, the two industries that continued to grow even during the recession were food and clean energy.
Yeah.
And so Rhode Islanders, we are great. Like, it could be a down economy, we are going out to eat. Like, we are buying good food and we are making it through.
And we want big portions.
Yeah, and we want our big portions, and we
Right.
want a stuffy, and we want the foods we want, and we will go out and eat them. So I think we are still, in luck, even if we. This is just something that's so important to Rhode Islanders. I mean, it's part of our history, it's part of our culture, and it's great for economic development. So, I mean, I think that's why food is so vital to our state. It's not something that, when the economy goes down, we're like, well, I guess we're all like planting our own victory garden, which, let's plant our own victory gardens. But I'd say, I think that just shows like how we need to be nimble too. So we have, different folks are playing different roles. And I've seen some of my state colleagues, like Ken Ayers or Kathy White over the Department of Health, who works in the Center for Food Protection. They're out to like 7, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Folks are having some late meeting and they feel like they should be there. They are there, and that's been really exciting. Though coming from not government for this, like having people leave at 4 is still kind of battling. But that's what the hours are. But people get in at 8, so it balances out.
Let's talk aquaculture for a second.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's been a fast growing, and that seeded 20 years ago, 25 years ago. What's the opportunity and what's the growth potential in aquaculture, not just in oysters and et cetera, but in other applications and other food stocks?
Yeah, so we've seen just explosive growth in aquaculture in Rhode Island, both in the bay, also in our ponds. And what's been exciting about the aquaculture we're doing here is it's all just very positive for the environment too. So it's great for the economy, but it's also been like playing a really great role in cleaning up our ponds and our bay. At the same time providing like a delicious source of food for Rhode Island people. So it's kind of a win-win-win. And we have, we have aquaculturists at all different scales. So we have wild harvest aquaculturists. Everybody should keep their eyes peeled in March for I think it's our 4th annual Quahog Week. So we celebrate the quahog every March to remind people that's a 365-day-a-year wild harvest. So put that on your calendars now, Quahog Week. From the small scale guys who are going out in their boat and doing wild harvest up to, the American mussel harvesters who have a big facility out in Quonset, and they're distributing stuff from kind of across New England, and they're doing it, both, they're distributing in New England, but they're also distributing across the whole country. So really seeing some great opportunities to continue to build out that market, connect to more of our local businesses, ship more broadly. But yeah, it's a great.
So my pet peeve,
now
that I'm the food czar, whether it's the C czar or the T czar, right here in studio at GoLocal Live at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center on Business Monday, is what is the minimum standard for the number of pieces of clam in a clam cake? Because there are some folks who are not meeting the minimum.
I don't know that there is a minimum.
Shouldn't there be?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to over-regulate. I don't think we want to over-regulate the clam cake. But there's some immoral injustice to say, this is a clam cake, and I can't find a clam in my clam cake.
Yeah, and there has to be at least a clam in the clam cake.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to have at least some clam in the clam cake for it to be
Is there any measuring device? Is there any one of those things like that slides or weights or, I don't know.
Yeah, how much clam is going to be in the clam cake? Not that I'm aware of, but that we should look into that. Yeah.
I'd appreciate that as food czar to look into that. As we go into the new year, we get out of the gubernatorial political season, but we go into budget season. Is there anything that the legislature can do that you're looking for help in this coming year that's going to be able to help put gasoline on the growth of the industry?
That is a great question. I've been working with my team in the governor's office and then across state government on a few really exciting things folks should keep their eyes peeled for. Something I know that came up in the legislature last year that I assume will come up again this year is around food waste.
Yeah.
So food waste, about 40% of the food grown across the whole country ends up in, ends up not being eaten, so ends up in the landfill or, basically landfills. And so we've really been thinking hard about how we reduce food waste here in the state and also how we divert it to other places. So like if it's still totally edible, the Department of Health has a really great program called the Rhode to End Hunger, which connects restaurants, and Twin River is actually a really big piece of this. Any of their food surplus, so delicious stuff that they've made and they can't serve because they didn't have enough people or they overmade or whatever, they can now connect that to folks in need through an app called Means and the Rhode to End Hunger, the Department of Health. But really seeing like how we can supercharge some of the development of our compost facilities or anaerobic digestion or some of those other diversion streams that we could be doing to reduce our food waste, because we only have a few years, we only have like 15 years left of our landfill, and about 30% of what's in there is compostable and food waste. So we want to make sure that we aren't throwing away good stuff.
Listen, I really appreciate you coming in and taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
And look forward to updates. Keep us up to date. And, we like to go on the road with live. So when you have Quahog Week or something else, we want to be there.
Next time we'll have food.
Next time. You know how excited everyone here was that the food czar is coming to the studio, and she comes with nothing. Absolutely
so
positive.
Next time there'll be food,
Except for, what did you bring?
I brought a copy of the food strategy.
A copy of the food strategy. And you know how delectable a public policy document is late in the afternoon.
Yeah, really tied you over for dinner.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to be back in about 30 seconds. We're going to be talking about acupuncture and how to spread it across the community and to improve public health. We'll be right back.